So CS2301 Business Analysis and System Design module. And I'm Sampath Dikal. So today's plan, I'm actually going to brief on how the course module structured and what parts we are going to cover in this, right? And then also, I'm also briefly talk about the assessment part. Now, once I finish that, my main aim is we are going to start with the introduction to the module, right? Okay, right. The primary references according to your syllabus is on for SWAN and HWAN information system analysis and design. I'm actually going to use this as a primary text for the course module and also like one of the modules, one of the textbook, which I will share with you in the LMS, right? So the main aim of this course at the end of this module, we are planning to provide you the basic principles and techniques used for system analysis and design. Especially, we know in an era where everything is digitized now, we are using software in various different ways. So we should know how information system is built and also the different phases. So in that sense, we discuss like how we can start with the real business problem and how do you use your knowledge and skills in business analysis and also learn about the software development life cycles and also the different phases like system planning, requirement analysis, and also implementations. And for that, we talk about modeling tools and then also maintenance and so on, right? So at the end of the module, you should have a good understanding how we start creating a information system, as well as different techniques we use throughout this development. Right, as a student, we expect you to have these skills at the end. The first one, you should be able to, play the role of business analysis. Some of you might, end up in a career like business analysis, where you primarily contact with the customers in an organization. And especially, you should be able to, understand all the different phases, as well as managing this software system development lifecycle. And as the second one, students should also be able to plan system development projects, starting from the beginning to the end, initiating the system development, as well as scheduling it. Like any project, we know we have some deadlines. So we know we need to schedule it. Like, for example, when you do your final year project, so the project spanned about like 2 semesters, you have to plan in what parts, what you do in the module. Then as the third one, we expect you to analyze different requirements of the system. So these are categorized as functional and non-functional. We'll come to that point later on. And also you identify what techniques, suitable for requirement gathering. So that is actually the main phase, and that is the starting point of, developing information system. Now, once you gather the requirements, you should also be able to use different tools. So we expect at least you are familiar with data flow diagrams, DFTs. I hope you have already done DFTs. Have you done DFTs? Data flow diagrams? Anyone? If you want, you can talk. I mean, there's nothing restricted. You can always raise questions. You don't have to be silenced. You can, pause me, ask questions. So remember that this is an interactive although we are meeting online, I want you to have a good interaction. Otherwise, you will get bored, right? My lectures are boring. So make sure that, you make it interactive. Ask a lot of questions, clarifications, and so on. Yes. Okay. So if if you have not learned this, it's perfectly all right. I'm going to cover. I just want to know how about ER diagrams in databases. Have you learned ER diagrams? Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So those who have already done ICT, you might have done DFTs in your A levels. Yes, of course. No problem. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to cover these different tools at different points in this module. So mainly, I'm going to talk about the data flow diagrams, UML diagrams, which is one of the tools we use to model object orientation. Business processes modeling notations, I don't think you have learned this one, where we learn how we could model a whole business using notation device under business process modeling notation. Because one of the things you should understand how a business works before you start building a system for it. And also like ER diagrams. So these are like some of the things that you are going to do within the module. Next, apply system design and implementation technique for system acquisition and construction. So we also discuss different phases and what really happens, what are the deliverables, and so on. So those are the skill set that we are trying to build with this module. Okay, now I think we are ready to start. So let me start with the introduction first. Now you know that these two pictures actually resembles how people come to work, right? This is the starting point. Any organization, when somebody comes for work, you have to record your attendance. So this black and white picture on the left, you will see a lady using a card system, and in here also we will use card system, and then you have to punch the card when you come to work. So the device there, once you insert this card, it will record the time automatically, right? So this is in 1950s. And by the next picture is in around 2013. This is actually from a textbook where you use a digital card like a credit card, you record the attendance. And nowadays we have fingerprint system, face recognition system, things have advanced, right? So what I want to talk about this is things are changing, and which means that we need to record all this information in some point. So everything that we are going to talk about this comes under IT. So I think I don't have to explain what IT is, but so in summary, we can talk about this as a combination of hardware, software, and services that people use to manage, communicate, and share information. And under that, we are going to talk about system analysis and design, or system design. So under that, we can see it as a process of developing information system. And we need this information system to transform our data into useful information. We know that we collect the data, but if you have not transformed into information, it's not that useful, isn't it? Now, for example, take for example, you guys, and you are here at SLTC. So when you enter the university, we keep all your demographic information, where you come from, what your O-level results are, what your A-level results are, things like that. And along the way, we keep your academic performance and sometimes your extracurricular performance. I mean, everything is recorded, but it is not very useful if you have not converted into information. by converting into information, we can make decisions based on the data, not just by our intuition, right? And that's why you are here. And especially in software engineering, like all these, computer related degrees that you are involved in, because you are trying to, you are learning to build the system so that actually you can improve the how the society works, for example. So SAD is actually the design hold the process of this information system. And I think you should have a good understanding of what it is. Now, essential components, if you take in an information system, so as I said you earlier, we have hardware, that we have server computers, we have networks and other devices. And we have software as well. Now, for example, here we have SIMs. I hope you are also familiar with the SIMs. And then we have a timetabling software. We have examination record software. We are using various types of software. And then, of course, you have to have data as well, because without data, these information systems are not useful at all. So we have to enter the data. So we have to enter your demographics, we have to enter your academic performance, we have to enter other extracurricular activities that you are involved in. Then only we can actually make use of them. But the collecting is not useful without processing them. So depending on what you want to do with the data, you are going to process it. And for that, you have different types of users. We have general users who uses this system. There are managers. There are some IT staff members. So they focus on different aspects of the same data. So we might use the same data, but different people might use different data. Like, for example, teachers level, for example, I actually wants to know how you are progressing, how many of you have actually accessed the LMS, how many of you have actually go through the material that I have posted in the LMS. So everything is recorded in the log file. So if I know how to visualize it, or like get a meaningful out of the log data, then I know what is going on. Similarly, managers, like top management may wants to know about like your financial information, your payments, in different aspect. So different people wants to look at different aspects. So IT staff members, for example, they were keen on, for example, last time we had examinations, and they were keen on whether there are cheating happens, right? Same data, but we look at in different ways. Finally, we need people, right? So we need to have people who has interest in information systems. They are the one actually called what we call stakeholders, right? Now, when you look at how businesses operate in today, it has completely changed from maybe like 10 years back, how business were operated. Earlier, we have physical places. Now things are virtual, like you don't really need a physical space to start a business. If you have read about the background story of Amazon, you know how they have started, right? So you don't need actually physical, no major investment is needed to start a business nowadays. Things have changed, right? So the point that I want to raise here is, if you want to design an information system, right, you have to have a good understanding about what is going on in a business operations, right? So now what has happened to businesses today? Rapid increasing of globalization. Now, not like in early days, everybody is connected. Like, for example, now early days when somebody go to another country, we normally misses them. There's no way to, interact with them. Now things have changed. I mean, we have WhatsApp, Viber, Zoom. You can talk to, your friends at any time, irrespective where they are. And right now, for example, in this lecture, I'm in one different geographical location and you are in different locations, right? This is because of the increased globalization. Technology integration. Sometimes you might not like, online lectures. Maybe you might like, physical interaction. But yes, you know that the technology is evolving and we have to adapt it, right? Sometimes whether we like it or not, that is where we should be heading, right? So that's why, the developing countries are actively or using the technology to deliver their content, deliver their courses, deliver their services. And rapid growth of cloud-based computing. Now, you don't need to install software now, right? For example, earlier we used to have a Word installed in our machine. Now there's no requirement. You can use Google Doc and then you can share among your friends. You can work at the same time synchronously. And if you need, you can download it into any version you want, right? Things have changed. Okay, so, but now the main aim of this, I told you, like modeling these operations. Now, before you model any business operation, because to build a successful information system, you should understand what is going on in a business, right? But before you start, you need to know what a business profile is. So when we talk about any business, you can find their mission, their functions, their organizations, their products, their services, their customers, their suppliers, competitors, constraints, or future directions. Now, for example, if I take SLTC, for example, now SLTC wants to, adapt the latest technology. And you see that how lectures are delivered, how the content are delivered is different. For example, they were focused on more on research. I don't know whether any other private university spend on research, because they want to have cutting edge technology for their students, like in state universities. And then if you take the organization, we have, for example, two academic arm as well as we have research arm. So where some senior researchers are actively engaged in research. And if you take SLT's products, they are different, right? Sometimes you will see, for example, I don't know whether you have heard, recently SLT launched, there's a program called DATE, which is, those who are working can actually earn a degree in applied IT in learning afterwards. Especially we are using the technologies that actually we build. And we in SLTC, I have seen like they are working on a European project called TEAL, where we talk about technology enabled active learning, where they work together with some European partners and Asian partners on collaborating the content. So I hope, I'm talking about the SLTC business profile because since you are there, you should know these things. And the products they are delivering, so they have different degree programs, so they are the products. And then they have customers, of course you are the one of the customers, yes. And then of course you have competitors, other private organizations, as well as public universities, they are the competitors. There are some constraints as well. You also know that, like sometimes we used to complain about the infrastructure and then future directions. So business profile tell you everything. So any organization, if you go there and if you see their vision and mission, this information is there. So as a business analysis, you should know what it means, right? If you take, for example, my university, I'm coming from University of Peradeniya. So Peradeniya's vision and mission is like, again, globalize, student, which the skills of, having various, cultures. Right. The second one is we need to understand the business processes. Now, when you talk about the business processes, it is specific set of transactions, events, results that can be described and documented. Now, for example, let's say you're finally a project. It's a process, one of the processes. You're finally a project span for 2 semesters. In the beginning, you start finding a problem, and then you propose some methodology to solve a problem with the help of the supervisors, and then you work on for 2 semesters, right? So there are some stages, like for example, during the first year, you might have mid evaluations like the progress review, and the second one, another progress review. Finally, you might have like final presentation. So you can see like the details, what is exactly happening. So you need to understand these specific of transactions. So we can use like modeling tools like BPM is what we call business process modeling, which we are going to cover in this module. We can use this modeling technique to graphically represent the business processes. Now, for example, buying a chicken from, let's say, supermarket, it's a process, because starting from how the chicken comes to let's say some food city, right? There should be a process of coming up with the product, right? So we need to understand each of these stages. Airline reservation, let's say you want to fly into, let's say, Paris, right? So you look at like what are the connections, whether you want to have a direct flight or whether you want to like have a cheaper ticket, depend on, then you can plan for routing. It's not an easy task, right? Although it looks easy, but there are minute details that you need to focus on, right? So you need to understand these business processes. Right, and this is one of the things that we are going to do in group work as well. So interactive session, I'm going to talk about this. Right, now that we understand that, okay, you need to understand about the organization and organization functions, the next thing is you should know, or you should understand different information systems available, right? So in this part, I'm going to talk about what business information systems are available. Now, in some organization, they use a one single software to manage everything, right? So I will go to, there's a figure on here. So for example, if you take large organization, they have different sections. For example, HR stand for human resources. Like if you take here, for example, we have a HR department who recruits lecturers, TAs, and so on. At the same time, they might involve in recruiting, other required personnel. Then there will be accounting department, which focus on handling accounts. And then there will be a sales department, marketing department, production department, IT department, and so on, right? So it's not a single place that you have to look at it. Now, if you have an information system which supports the company-wide operations, like for example, if the software can handle HR, if the software can handle production, marketing, IT, everything together, we call it enterprise resource planning systems or ERP systems. So for example, if you take Sri Lanka, like some of our software companies are quite popular for ERP software systems, and you might work for them. So when you say ERP means the software can be used everywhere in the organization, right? So as it says, it will provide support for users and managers throughout the company. This is sometimes we can say, okay, largest possible piece of software you can have. And then there could be some system which actually focus only on day-to-day business operations. So those kind of information systems are known as transaction processing systems, right? So transaction processing systems, which means they can keep track of what is happening day-to-day business operations, right? For example, if you take the POS system, point of sale systems in supermarkets, are they ERP or TPS? What do you think? Yes. POS systems means that when you go to a computerized, shops, they have computers, sometimes the money drawers, the small printers, bill printers are there. Now my question is POS, is it an ERP system or is it a transaction processing system? Yes, what do you think? Any guesses? Okay, Ranasinghe says TPS, right? And Hansaka said ERP, okay. Any other answers? It depends, but most of the time, if you take general POS systems, point of sale systems, they actually record day-to-day transactions. But there could be some POS systems which can handle everything. If that is the case, then you may consider it as a ERP. So there's no clear-cut answer for this, but it depends on the capabilities of the point of sale system. But generally, my feeling is it's more towards transaction processing systems, which only focus on day-to-day transactions. Right. So let's move to the third one. Anyway, good that you have answered, both of you. Highly appreciate that, answering the questions. Third one, business support systems. These systems provide job-related information support to users at all levels of company, right? Sometimes some systems can store information and then they can, give information about the job related, right? Now, for example, in many medical domain, you can keep, right? Keep some information and then you can actually retrieve them. So the fourth one is also very similar to that one. The fourth one is known as knowledge management systems. Now, when you say knowledge management system, it actually have a very large database. We call it knowledge base. You can find information by asking questions or putting keywords. Like in a conversational manner, like I think large language model like GPT. Now we have version 4, which actually can talk like a person, right? Like they can, sometimes we can actually make it to get more specific answers. So, but I mean, ChatGPT is actually developed in more general, aspect, not particularly focused on a particular area. But when we talk about knowledge management systems, we focus particularly now, for example, in medical domain, right? In medical domain. So this is very useful. Like the expert knowledge can be acquired and keep it as a knowledge base. Okay, I got a question, right? Okay, Hansak asked like how often ERP used in business. I think large organization, they use often, right? But if you are a like medium to small size organization, you might not need a ERP solution, but because you have to spend a lot of money in ERP solutions, because I told you like it can support all the functionalities in the organization, which cost a lot if you go for a commercial version of the application. But I think major organizations, they have most of them, they are using ERP systems. Right, last one, user productivity system. Now, sometimes companies provide some technologies to improve the productivity of its employees, like, for example, providing email facilities, video conferencing, and automated calendars, these could be used to improve the user productivity. This is actually lowest level, very useful, and which will improve the productivity of the users as well. Right, any questions up to now? No questions? Okay. Understood that you didn't understand anything at all. You know that when you don't have questions, it means I'm at one of the two ends. Either you understand everything or nothing at all. Right? I hope you have understood the what we have discussed. More information, I'm going to share the chapters where all this information I have taken, so that you can read more about them. Okay, let's continue then. Right. Now, this figure actually shows you one of the modeling techniques that I have discussed. Now, I told you about like business process modeling, where we can model a business in a graphical representation. So in this figure, what you see is when we have like multiple processors, in this graphic shows you each of these processors. It's like a flow chart, right? Now, for example, you will see there are 3 processors here, and the first process start with the event called receiving a sales order. Now, when you receive a sales order, usually you have to check customer whether he's having a credit, meaning like whether he has financially feasible to purchase. Now, so the first process is you check the customer status, and then you verify customer credit. And then once you are happy with their credit, then you can actually enter customer order data, and that will result a completed sales order. So this is a small thing, but you will see that it's sometimes very useful to understand these processes. So this is one example use case of business process modeling. So this graphic is actually shows you a typical organization model. One is if you look at what is happening inside the organization, there are many business functions are there, starting from HR, accounting, sales, marketing, production, and IT. Like for example, right now, if you're trying to find out where we SLTC fit in and the teachers are fitting, I think we are in the production level. So we are trying to mold you with the skill full graduates in IT, right? So this is the production. I think this is one of the functions like delivery modules. And then the second one is like in the triangle, you will see different organization levels. So when you see organization levels, operational employees are the lowest level, right? So you see there are some operational employees. For example, even the lecturers comes under this. And then there are supervisors, which are like maybe head of departments, middle managers and knowledge workers, for example, school heads. And then maybe a senior top management comes as a top managers. So you see any organization, you can actually see this hierarchy. And the triangle represent the numbers as well. So we have a large number of operational employees, then little less number of supervisors, less number of middle managers, and top management is very small, right? Right. Now, the next thing that I'm going to discuss is, now we have seen that we have different hierarchy, different users, and their information requirement is different. Because when we build the information system, Hansakas are directors also in the top management level. There's no clear cut of specified like this, but general, my answer is yes. So the directors also goes under the top management. Yes. Right. Top managers, for example, the top managers are the ones who actually make long-term plans, like where we should be in another 10 years time, right? Where we are heading. Like, for example, I'm always trying to give you like examples related to what you feel like in SLTC, for example. I think we have a mission to be successful in research as well. So we are actually having long-term plans for that. So these are known as strategic plans. Basically, those define what company's overall mission and goals. So top management, they use IT to set company's course and direction. I think SLTC also have different way of use of IT, right? Technology usage is slightly different, right? You might have seen this. Then we have middle managers or knowledge workers, right? Middle managers, they provide the direction, resources, performance feedback to supervisors and team leaders, right? It's like I told you, like in our case, it's like school heads closely working with the head of departments. They were working towards, looking at what resources that they need, like, for example, the number of lecturers, number of computing facilities that we have. They were managing at that level. That means within the organization, they are working on those. And when we say knowledge workers, they are coming from different professionals. We have system analysis, programmers, accountant, researchers, trainers, human resource specialists, and so on. And they work as what we call supporting staff. So, and usually what they use is business support systems or knowledge management systems. And sometimes they also use user productivity systems. Then we have supervisors and team leaders, oversee operational employees. Like, for example, I told you about the head of departments. They look after their lecturers, their requirement, right? So the information system that they may involve in is decision support information they need. They also may use knowledge management systems, also use the productivity systems. Operational employees is the lowest level, like include users who rely on transaction processing systems. That means what is happening day to day. So they are the ones who actually record this kind of information. Right. Now, I think we discuss about the business organizations. We have understand business profile. We understand various business functions. We have also understood like different levels, and we have also understood different levels need different information required. Now, the next thing that I'm going to discuss is about the system development tools. Now, to support all these business operations, we need to build an information system. But to build the information system, we have to model it first. So usually when we say modeling, we talk about the graphical representation. So graphical representation of a process or a concept, right? So for example, when we say business model, it describes the information that a system must provide, right? What kind of information you need, right? For example, as a teacher, I would like to know a particular student performance, past performance. For example, sometimes people contact me on supervising their final year project. Sometimes I curious on, okay, what their progress, like what their information, right? So analyst is the one actually create models to represent these data, objects, networks, and other system components. Then that is about the modeling part. Then they were prototyping. Now prototyping is a we call early working model. Now before we create a building, sometimes you see a model of this, right? Sometimes when we are building a large infrastructure, before you really create it, you have a small toy model where you can get a feeling of how it look like, you know. So prototype, we can say it's an early working version of an information system. So when you are building system as well, we can come up with a prototype software which actually shows you basic working of the software. Then there are case tools. Now case actually stands for Computer-Aided System Engineering, or CASE. And also we can say it's a computer-aided software engineering, which is a technique we use that use powerful software, which we call case tools, to help system analysts to develop and maintain information systems. Right. Now that we have understand the basics, let's look at what are the development approaches we have. Now, when you want to build the information system, there are different ways that you can actually build the system. First one, we call it structured analysis, a traditional method. Structured means you have well-structured phases. So system development life cycle, for example, or waterfall model, you have a well-defined set of phases. In this figure, you will see system planning, system analysis, system design, system implementation, and we have system security and support. So we have nicely arranged each of these phases. So you have a very clear path where we are heading. Now, this is called structured analysis or traditional method. So structured analysis use series of phases called system development life cycle that usually is shown as a waterfall model. Structured analysis uses an oral plan similar to a blueprint for constructing a building. So it is called a predictive approach. This method uses a set of process models to describe a system graphically and also address data organization and structure, relational database design, and user interfaces. So you see that it's a well-defined, you will have a well-defined structure. Right. Now that's about the first one. It's called traditional approach. Now these traditional approach are useful if you know exactly what you are building, or if it's a very simple information system. If you know from start to finish what is going on, then we can, of course, can talk about the structured analysis. Second one, we call object-oriented analysis. So this approach is used, right, because of the object orientation. So everything we are going to see it as objects and their interactions. Third one, we call agile methods. So this is the latest trends in software development. And then there are other development methods as well, things like joint application development and rapid application development, or RAD. Right. Now, before we move on to the next parts, because this is what I have actually covered for the previous session as well. Before we move on to the details, right, I would like to discuss some development strategies, right? So So let's discuss the next one. Now, the next one is called object-oriented analysis. Now, with the invent of object-oriented programming language like Java or Python, we can model any problem as object interaction. So in object-oriented analysis, we will actually create what we call objects. So these objects we can use to represent people, things, transactions, or events. And then you will also have object characteristics we call properties. And then we have methods. So when you take any object, you will have a set of properties as well as set of methods, right? And object to object can be interacted using passing messages, right? So this is how usually we represent them. But if you compare this with the system development life cycle, usually the phases will be similar, but they are more interactive. So in this figure, just show you some example where we have superclass called person and subclass instructors. And then you will see properties and the methods, right? So we will discuss, we will have a separate session on this. I will discuss in detail later on. And then the processes are more interactive, which means more iterative, like you have planning, analysis, and design. You build the prototypes and you test them. And if you success, then you go for implementation. Otherwise, you again start planning, analyzing, and designing it. The next one is agile models. Now, agile models are what we call the newest approach. And it is very useful environment where your requirements are changing rapidly. So the system we are going to build using incrementally. Incrementally means a part by part. Let's say we are going to build a software system for SLTC University, for example. So we can start, creating a system for student first, because that's the main part. And then you can include, teachers information and then other infrastructure information and so on, right? So there are many techniques comes under Agile. So usually you will have a series of iterations or the revisions based on the feedback you get, right? Right, okay. So here are like two examples. What you see in your left-hand side is called Scrum, and your right-hand side we call extreme programming. So you see there are different phases, different interactions. So if I take, for example, some Scrum, so the features are we call product backlogs. And user is the one who's going to prioritize which product we need to include. And extreme programming, on the other hand, you will see there are different sessions, and it may take different times, like some are taking months, some taking weeks, days, 1 day, hours, and so on. You see how it works. Right. Then there are some other development methods as well. So some organization, they are going to build their own techniques for software, right? And some, they cannot adopt the techniques from some software suppliers. And then with this, you will see there are like two main strategies you will see for the development. Joint application development, or JAD, is a one way to do this. And rapid application development means you want to build a system within, with a shorter time period, so you can go for that. But whatever the development technique that you have used, remember that, right? The costs you have to manage effectively, right? And you have to manage programming as well. Right. Okay. So that's all what I want to discuss for today's session. And the remaining session, I'm going to have a group work. Remember that I forgot to mention about how the marks distribution. You will get 20 marks from group works like this, plus 30 marks from mid-semester examination and 50 marks for final examination. And the exam is currently we set to close book, but it depends on the circumstance at the end, right? So keep in mind. Okay, so as a group, I'm going to put you in groups. The remaining time, what I want you to do is work as a group. First, select an organization. You can select any organization. I don't know, McDonald's, Coca-Cola, even the SLTC or some school, you know, try to be unique, not you know, trying to do the same thing or simpler thing, right? So select the organization of whatever you prefer and what you are known of, and then you should identify what their objectives are. So if you look at their vision and mission, you can get an idea what their objectives are. Then second step, as a group, I want you to identify 3 users of information system, right? 3 users. So for example, in SLTC, we have school heads, we have department heads, we have lecturers like, or teaching assistant, TA. So likewise, identify 3 users of whatever the organization you have choose. Then identify 2 functions, right? The information should support for each user. Now, for example, if I take a lecturer, one of the functionality that I expect from the information system is I want to see student performance, their GPAs, how GPA evolve in different semesters. So likewise, think about like 2 functionalities which supports the information. And once you decide on these functionalities, remember we discussed different categories of information systems. We discuss it as ERP, TPS, PSS, KMS, and UPS. So identify your system. Is it a ERP solution, or is it a TPS? Is it a BSS? Is it a KMS? And is it a UPS? And finally, I also want to know from you whether you are going to use a structural analysis like waterfall technique, or whether you go for object-oriented analysis, or whether you got the recent one, Agile, right? So those are the questions that I want you to answer. You can actually take a screenshot of this question, or I'll pass it to this. So are you ready to put you in groups? So I'm going to create I'm going to create some breakout rooms. So let me post this.